I got to get me one of those.
Let's go.
I got to get me one of those for my church. I think every church should get themselves one of those. That was incredible. I was just right here going, I mean, I appreciate the ukulele, but man, we need some drums and some Lord God Almighty and some beautiful people up there just jamming it out for the Lord, amen? Now, it is my custom wherever I go, I gotta at least teach you something in Hawaiian. One or two of you guys might be experts. So we're gonna try this out. I'll give you something simple. We're gonna learn how to say God is love. So, well, we gotta raise the competition here. So I'm gonna go with Team A and Team B. So we're gonna practice this out together. We're gonna say this together. Say aloha. Okay, some of you guys said aloha. It's not aloha, and it's not alohe. Jason, please. Sorry. Aloha. Ke akua. Aloha ke akua. Maybe you're more Hawaiian than me. So let's give it up. We're gonna when I say aloha ke akua, we're gonna have Team A sound it out. Ready? Aloha ke akua.
Aloha ke akua.
Almost sounded like the haka. Aloha ke what?
Team Zeal.
Team Zeal. Aloha ke akua. Let's try it one more time. Aloha ke akua. Aloha ke akua. All right. Geez, I wonder who won that one. Did a good job. So this morning I was reading, actually I read this a couple of days ago and I read it this morning. It's kind of crazy. You mind if I read something to you? He says, there was this letter written by a father who wanted to apologize to a certain young man for not allowing him to marry his daughter. Ooh. Right? He says, Dear Tony, I have been unable to sleep since I broke off your engagement with my daughter. Will you please forgive and forget? Question mark. I was much too sensitive about your tattoos and your long hair and your gothic clothing and your pierced nose. I now realize that motorcycles aren't that dangerous and that I should have not reacted to the way that you dressed. I've been so insensitive and backwards. I'm sorry. I know for sure you'll make a good son-in-law. I have come to my senses now. You have my full blessings and you may marry my daughter. Sincerely, your future father-in-law. P.S. Congratulations on winning the lotto. You know, sometimes we have intentions in our heart. Sometimes we have good intentions. I don't know what your intentions are. I just met you. And I already told you how to say God is love. So I've already actually done more for you than you've done for me. So you owe me one. We're going to read in the Bible here and how God views us. And we're going to stick right here. We're going to camp out right in 1 Kings 18. So be turning right there. I read this letter and I didn't get it the first time. I don't know if you're like me. I'm the guy that gets it like the third or the fourth time. And when somebody else tells it, and you go, man, he told it way better than me. But in 1 Kings 18, what's going on here, a little background, is after 3 years of this drought, the Lord tells Elijah that it's time to confront Ahab and make it rain. Meanwhile, Ahab's getting pretty desperate to find some water. He calls a guy named Obadiah. He's kind of like a governor in his house. Obadiah is a really good guy. He's the guy who hid the 100 prophets in the cave from Jezebel. Ahab sends out Obadiah to look for that place where he can find some living water and some living grass. He's like, find something to survive our donkeys. It's the ancient Uber. So, no grass, no Uber. And so, Obadiah's like, okay, I'll do it, sir. And while he was out looking for the grass, he found Elijah. Of course, we know that during this time, the prophets were being hunted down to be put to death. And so they're having this conversation, and he says, hey, Elijah, what are you doing here? He goes, go tell your boss that I'm right here right now. And he's like, nah. If I go, the Spirit of God's going to take you away, then I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to die for not bringing you in. Because I give you my word, man. I'm going to camp out right here. Just call your guys. Come back and get me. To Obadiah's surprise, after he bumps into him, he comes back. And Elijah's getting accused of being a troublemaker of this time. Elijah turns around and goes, no. You're the troublemakers. I am still faithful to God, and you turn to false prophets. And so now he's calling up these guys. And so to raise the stakes, he's like, you know what? You call your 400 prophets, and you call the 400 that eat from the table of Jezebel, meet me on Mount Carmel. We're going to have a showdown today. You ever like puff yourself up a little bit too much? Bite off more than you could chew? Do something above your ability? Like last night we were eating pizza. I gotta say, San Francisco represents when they bring me to Chicago pizza. San Francisco, Chicago pizza. But this was the best. I feel very welcome. This is the best pizza I ever had. But somehow my slipper got stuck between the table, and I consider myself not a weak guy. I don't consider myself like the Hulk either. And I tried to pull my slipper and my hamstrings. I was like, I was like, great. Now I get to look like the wimp in front of all my friends. But the pizza was good. But sometimes we can bite off more than we can chew. And right now we see Elijah sets himself up for this showdown in Mount Carmel. So now you can feel the gathering, people talking. Let's go. We're going to get this guy. Elijah's setting it up for the kill. Let's pick up our text in verse 20. So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel, assembling the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people and said, how long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. But the people said nothing. Then Elijah said to them, am I the only one of the Lord's prophets left? But Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one of them for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it into the wood, not to set it on fire. I will prepare the other bull, and I will put it on the wood, but not set it to fire. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of my Lord. The God who answers by fire is God. The title of our lesson this morning is, God is fired up for you. I think often I don't know about you, but just since I've landed, after we said we love you with the love of the Lord, and I felt so welcome, and my whole family, I heard the word fired up at least 100 times. Bro, I'm fired up. I'm fired up. And I think, I am fired up too. But when God is fired up for you, how much more fiery is that situation? Well, man, who am I that God can be fired up for me? But he loves his disciples. God is fired up for this church. I look at the church right now. You know what's inspiring is that God moved things around. My wife and I were just minding our business in Phoenix, and somehow we got baptized. I had no intention of going into the ministry, but I didn't even know what the ministry was. I feel like I got bamboozled on my first Bible talk when they made the announcement that Garrido's Bible talk multiplied to 21, and I was like, we have a Bible talk? I was like, we have a Bible talk? All we're doing is making food, bringing people, studying the Bible out of the first principles, like, seeking God. And before you know it, we're like these region leaders, and I didn't even know. The Garridos have a cranking region. I was like, we have a region? Like, what's going on here? We just got on the fast track. You know when you're in fast track, but you don't know you're in the fast track? And then God said, hey, you know what? Let's see what your intentions are. Because I said, I was sold out for God. God, please humble me. God, please prepare me. You ever have those kind of prayers? And then you're limping the next day. You're like, God, please humble me, Lord. Teach me how to be a man. And then God gives you like this awesome sister that you cannot match up to. And then you're learning your lessons finally. I think about what God does when God says, I am fired up for you. Elijah was in a situation where now he has no choice. He has no choice but to depend on God. Let's continue on to verse 25. Elijah said to the prophets of Baal. Now, when it says Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, there's now over 1,600 eyeballs staring at him. Over 1,600 eyeballs staring at him. I get nervous just even looking at Jason's kid. I want to warn you, do not play Uno with that guy. I was trying to write a lesson last night. I was in Nehemiah, and I was listening to this kid. I'm like, I got to go give my son a hug. He's like totally robbing my son of his confidence. So, and then this morning I was like, how old are you, kid? He goes, I'm 5. Boom! I'm like, scaring me. And I think about Elijah and how many people are just staring him down right now. You ever feel like you said, hey, I want to lead a Bible talk. I want to date that sister. Send me on a mission team. Please, let me do the contribution. I want to share for communion. Bro, I want to be your right-hand guy. Let's crank it. And all of a sudden, God's like, all right. And then 16,000 eyeballs, 1,600 eyeballs are on you. Maybe on your campus. Maybe in the singles ministry. Perhaps maybe in the marrieds who are everywhere but nowhere. Maybe even the teens. I look at this and I go, wow, the pressure is now on. And it gives us it takes away all of our excuses right now when we complain about our ministry. You know, like, God, why did you put me in this situation? And I'm like, you're not the one with the broken down altar, meat, and a lot of water on your wood yet. And this guy has to prove something to this crazy lost generation that should belong to God. And so, in verse 26, it says, so they took the bull, giving them and preparing it. Then they called in the name of Baal from morning till noon. Baal answered us. Answer us, they shouted. But there was no response. No one answered. And they danced around the altar they had made. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. Shout louder! Now this is just a bad scene. Oh yeah, come on, Baal. Hey, hey, yeah, woo, woo. And then nothing happens. Their feet's hurting, their sandals are wore out, their rhythm's gone, the band stopped playing, no answer at all. That's worse than asking a girl to dance and she turns you down. But I think about this. In verse 27, it says, at noon Elijah began to taunt them. Shout louder, he said. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he's in deep thought. He's in a moment right there. Or busy traveling. Maybe he's sleeping and must be awakened. So they shouted louder, lashed themselves with swords and spears as it was their custom. And I pray that we never bring this custom into the kingdom until their blood flowed. Midday passed and they continued their frantic dance until it was time for evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. Our first point is silence the critics with all boldness. Silence the critics with all boldness. I was around 40 years old when I was asked to come into the ministry. I was in the bouncer business and in the club scene. I was driving a 58 Ford, a Softail Harley dragged out with gorilla hangers. Ape, you call them. I call them gorillas. And it was the loudest thing. You knew I was coming from the next city over. I had long hair, had my little Jesus look on, tatted up, earrings, and I was nothing nice. And then this guy, Luke Speckman, you might know him, he says, how much would it take you to live with your family? I go, I don't know. My wife's pregnant now, so probably around $7,000 a month. He goes, will you do it for $1,500? I said, sure. I should probably talk to my wife about that. So I went home and I said, wife, can we live on $1,500? She said, no. I said, Luke, she's fired up. I was very unwise. I learned a lot of things. Don't do it. And so it was the first time Luke was leading a church. Grace and mercy for everybody. So I started doing this scrubbing toilets at night. And I went into a guy's business and said, I'm going to save you tons of money by scrubbing toilets and streamlining your business. He goes, how? I said, I don't know. Give me until tomorrow and I'll figure it out. How many employees do you have? How many stores do you have? Where do you keep your merchandise? Blah, 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 blah. Long story short, I saved this guy over $6,000 a week on his business. I hire all these interns on and go, guys, you're living in my house for free. I'm going to feed you and we're going to start a ministry. Like, you don't even know how to lead a ministry. That is right, but neither do you. And I said, we're in this together, guys. We're like the nobodies. And that was the name of our group, the Nobodies. And so I figured, if you want to stay humble, just call yourself the Nobodies. And we started this thing. And then Luke says, oh, no. You're not going to be in the Marriott. You're going out to campus. I was like, campus ministry with all the beautiful, cool kids? Look at me. He goes, I know. Go down there. They need a dad. We go down to campus, and the first guy I shared my faith with, he was a football player. I said, hey, come and study the Bible with me right now. There he goes, who are you? I said, you talk to me like that? I'm an older guy. Sit down. We're going to study the Bible right now. He said, yes, sir. I said, my name is Uncle to you. We study the Bible. Guy gets baptized. I was like, hey, guys, I think I know how you do it. You just go and you silence the crowd and you silence the critics with confidence. Watch. Follow me, guys. And we did it all day long. And before you know it, there was 21 baptisms. We were still doing our studies out of the first principles. I'm glad they weren't testing us during the first principles during that time, because I'd be like, what comes after Psalm 119? But you look at the boldness of Elijah. 1,600 eyeballs right in his face. And he doesn't break. And you think about Jesus, how Jesus preached the word in the synagogue so powerfully that they took him up to a hill to throw him off that cliff. And yet he turned around. And he silenced the crowd with all boldness. He walked right through them. They were going, we were just going to throw that guy off the cliff. And now he's still preaching the word? What just happened? You think about in Matthew 22:33, in Luke 4, Jesus flat preached the word. And they were never, ever able to touch him because of how bold he was for his Father. I think about us this morning on our campuses. Does this describe you when you have 70,000 eyeballs facing you?
Come on, bro.
When you commit to something, you're like, okay, there is no turning back right now. There's no way I could turn back. Can you imagine if Jesus was walking down the Via Dolorosa and he was like, okay, 110 pounds, get it off of me, I'm done. I'm out of here. Drop the log. And he just leaves where we would be at today. I think about how every single one of us had an opportunity to at least study the Bible. I met so many faces here today that it's their first time to ever be out. I'm going to tell you something. I was right up your alley. Just somebody invited me out. I was like, whatever, I'm not doing anything. Scratching my belly. I ended up coming to church, and it was horrible. There was 14 people. The guy was singing that Lord God Almighty was like this. Lord God Almighty. But it was worse. And it was Luke Speckman. It was 200 pounds heavier, no joke. And he had these big pork chop. He looked like Jim Belushi. And I was like, there's no way I'm ever coming back to this church. Next week, I'm baptized. I showed them reverse psychology. My reverse psychologies, they're not going to catch on. I think about Rosa Parks. She got on a bus one day and she had no idea she was going to impact the world and change the world forever. Rosa, which they probably didn't call her Rosa. Get to the back of the bus. She said, no. Just because I have a different skin color doesn't mean I'm going to give up my chair. And little did she know that she would impact the civil rights movement for eternity. That we look at each other in a different way. I think about J.K. Rowling. Recently divorced, dumped really. Single mom, writing out of napkins. And yet today, a decade passes by and every movie, every writer is influenced by her art. She never knew that she could change the view of the world with her confidence. She never knew that if I take a bold stand for what I believe in, that people would change forever.
Come on, bro.
Every day when you watch movies, everything resembles Harry Potter. Everything resembles everything of someone great. I want to challenge the church this morning.
Come on, bro.
I don't know where your level of boldness stands right now and what that even means to you. But many times in my walk where I thought I was being bold, I was thinking I was being brave, thought I was standing up for the Lord, and then I would ask somebody else, hey, how do you think I'm doing spiritually? And they would say, bro, you need to get restored. I was like, gosh. At least take me out for a burger, man. What in the world? When I think I'm being bold in my marriage and I'm like, I'm coming into this, it's going to be an easy D time. Bro, how's your marriage? Cinch. Nailed it. And then I turn over and all I can hear is the weeping willow. And I'm looking at her going, what happened? Who did that to you? You did! You are that man! I'm like, oh my gosh. We got to take a sober assessment of who we are, how we stand before the Lord. Because if we're going to commit to a project for the Lord, I mean, if we're truly going to evangelize all of San Jose, we got to take a good look. If we're truly going to evangelize all of San Francisco, we got to take a deep look at where we stand. If we're going to get to the East Bay, and boy, I know something about the East Bay because something you don't know about me, I used to live down here in the Bay Area. I've been to I've lived in 98th and Bancroft, and if you guys don't know where that's at, hood. I got some street credit. Concord was like paradise for me. I lived in a place they called Beirut, Bay Point. Oh yeah, they used to call it Dodge. That was the original Dodge City where the Hells Angels first came into the California chapter. It was nothing nice. Bay Point, where the place, every street corner was cheaper cigarettes. Everywhere. That was like the convenience store. But I think about even the west side. Like what's going on in the west? How are we going to get to all of California? How are we going to evangelize those homes down there in Milpitas where they're valuing at $2 million now for this little rinky-dink made out of recycled diaper thing? And you're like, how do we get to people who don't want God? Well, we got to take a bold stand. We got to silence the critics. But here's the thing, is maybe you're your worst critic. Maybe this morning you're like, oh yeah, I got it going on. Or I don't got it going on. I don't think I could ever overcome something. God's worked in my life a lot, but there's still good things that I don't think God is able to do for me. I mean, I get it, the Mark 9, if I can think, help me overcome my unbelief. I get that. But God is limited these days. He's everywhere. He might not have the power to change this little thing that I'm still going through after 10 years of being a disciple. I'm still mad at that brother, and I don't even know his last name. Why can't I be the main singer? Wow. That silenced the crowd? I want to challenge us to really take our boldness for the Lord to a whole new level. Wherever you're at, right? Wherever you're at, the Lord's base level is up here. So you need to get on up to the Lord's level now. Let's continue reading on 1 Kings 18. 1 Kings 18, starting in verse 30, it says, Then Elijah said to the people, Come here to me. Then they came to him. And he repaired the altar of the Lord which had been torn down. Elijah took the 12 stones, one for each of the tribes, the descendants from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had came, saying, Your name shall be Israel. With the stones he built the altar in the name of the Lord. And he dug a trench around a large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. He arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and laid it on the wood. Then he said to them, Fill large jars with water and pour it in this offering and all the wood. Now, if I'm going to go up a competition and I got 1,600 eyeballs staring at me, booing me, I wouldn't do that. Not a good call. Raising the stakes. He's so confident right now. He's like, God's going to pull through for me. God's on fire for me. Put some water on my sacrifice. And then do it again times 3. This is incredible.
Come on, bro.
Do it a third time, he ordered them, and they did it a third time. The water ran down around the altar, even filled the trench. Our second point this morning is nothing is impossible for the builders of God's kingdom.
Come on, bro.
I think about what the enemies must have been doing right now with their sacrifice. What could 800 people do? Each of them could throw a pebble and make an altar just like that. Elijah was looking at them, and his altar wasn't even built. He was like, okay, I have so much confidence, I'm just going to repair this thing while you guys have your stuff going over there. You've been dancing, your feet's bleeding, all this stuff. Let me just fix this up. My Lord's coming. He's coming here. He's building the altar. And while he's building it, he's not even thinking about himself. I got to tell you, there's been times where I've been the guy going, I don't even know why that guy's singing that song. I should be the song leader. I've been the guy going, I memorized Matthew 28, 18 to 20. Why can't I do the contribution? I should be Jason's right-hand guy. I've been the guy. I've been the guy that thought I could preach better than the other guy. I was a wicked guy, walking into church going, so I could hear in my mind, you know that Staying Alive song? The Staying Alive disciple. And thinking that I have it going on. And we look at Elijah here, and his heart was he was thinking about his brothers. He was thinking about the tribes. He was thinking about the family. Like when you're on your campus, are you thinking about what specific part you have that God's entrusted you so that you can remember what the Lord's sacrifice is, so that you can remember your brothers and sisters who are depending on you to build your part of the wall. And he just starts remembering the tribes. He says, I'm going to build this altar for you, Lord. Not once. Sometimes we can get overconfident when we got success. I don't know about you. Maybe I'm the only wicked guy in the heart sometimes.
Come on, bro.
When you're seeing your church grow and you go, oh yeah, my region did that. You don't even sense this from Elijah's heart. He's all, I'll just build this thing. They're already looking at me. Lord, this is for you. I'm going to put this in place. Put that there. Just putting the rocks in place.
Come on, bro.
Then he says, then there's this trench. Guys, you got to understand this is like 3.3 gallons a pop. And he does it 3 times over. It's like 9 gallons of water on the flesh and on the wood. I mean, you got to really believe in what a God can do.
Yeah.
When you're dousing. You might as well did it underwater. It's basically what it was. 3D underwater. And you look at Elijah's heart, how selfless he was, how dedicated he was to finish the job no matter what the cost. And I wonder, like, we, just so you know, we look to the San Francisco Bay International Christian Church as an example for the Hawaiian Islands. To imagine that we are where you were at 2 years ago, and right now you have over 200 sold out disciples in the Bay. I'm a 50-year-old guy. I'm a 50-year-old man. Trying to preach the word. I got a career move at a late age. I could be the dad of my boss.
Thank you.
And we look at the San Francisco church and we go, God is with them. And it inspires us because we're exactly where you were 2 years ago. And we've learned so much from Jason and Sarah. It's crazy. I've said this at the GLC one time. I got this letter going, rebuke. I was like, that's the title? I'm just curious what's going to be in the body of this email. And I was so grateful when I first saw it. I was like, bubbly heart, bubbly heart, bubbly heart, calm heart. Thanks, bro. So true. I think it's time for the church, in order to explode and to really become successful for the Lord before the year ends, is we just got to be flat real. I think this is a super cranky church. I don't know a whole bunch about it. I love the stats. I see the singing and everything. But I like to consider my life like worth nothing. And I just stand before you, a humble guy, going, guys, if there's anything we could do is just be true to who we are right now and true to what God can do with us, and we can blow out this year. So now it's Elijah's turn. And Elijah's calling out to God. And he's still confident. I will remember this. Go ahead and write this down for the sake of time in Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things that God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. And Elijah was simply preaching to call the people back who left the Lord. And many of us will be in that place if we haven't been in that place already. Many times in my heart, I've smiled at the church level. Many times I've left the Lord, but still acting in body. I want to praise the church for those who kept it real from the start. I'm dying, guys. Give me some help. Bro, my marriage is suffering. Help me, please. Bro, I'm enslaved to pornography. If I could just get some help. Sis, I have temptations of leaving my husband. I can't get my mind around this whole family thing. I have too many kids. They're driving me crazy. I can't do this any longer. Human beings are addicted to drugs and commit suicide for these very reasons. And yet in the kingdom of God, we have the ability to confess and empty out our cups and get filled in with the Lord. And I don't think we're taking advantage of that enough. If you walk into a tea time and you're dragging your tail and you're stepping on it every now and then, you have not taken advantage of the Lord's grace. If you're still critical of your Bible talk leader because he's still in Mark 9, you haven't understood the Lord's grace. If you were complaining on your way up here because it was too long at $10 a gallon or whatever it is that they're charging us these days, you have not understood the Lord's grace. If you're one of those guys that didn't pay your contribution to the Lord during the GLC, you absolutely don't understand the Lord's grace. We got to make it right. I really appreciate the insight on that contribution. I mean, like, wow, that we've become untied from the world. I'm going to steal that forever. Write that down for me, please. You know, I think maybe in some of our lives, the things that steal our confidence is like, why can't I have the dream boyfriend? How come I can't get the girlfriend? I mean, as far as I can tell in my 12 years as a disciple, those are the things that I struggle with. Why can't I be this? And why can't I be that? And I think about all the times that I've robbed God of giving Him 100%. Wasting His time while He believes in me, while He's fired up for me. Can you feel me on that, church? I want to challenge you. Maybe you haven't been fruitful this year. Maybe you haven't been fruitful. I appreciate Tim Kernan. He was like, I'm going after my neighbor. How many of you guys remember that story he was telling on the dinner night? That freaked me out. And then I remember Jason on our last tea time while I was in Honolulu. He goes, bro, you know what you got to do? You just need to go down to campus and find yourself a 5-talent guy. I said, yes, sir. I went down to the campus, found a 5-talent guy, baptized him in 3 days, and now he's a cranky brother. He's cranky, man. Football player from UH Manoa. But I think about if 200 people could just like start all over from zero. Like, I need to be fruitful before the end of the year. How many months more? Someone help me out. I'm very bad with math. How many months do we have to the end of the 4 months left? 4 months. 4 months. That's almost half the time it takes for a woman to give birth. Do you think maybe you could give birth to somebody before a woman could half the time give birth? I mean, is there anybody who's halfway through their pregnancy right now? Nobody? We got to be fruitful and multiply. That wasn't in my notes. Not even in my notes. Remember, nothing is too impossible for the builders of God's kingdom. Amen? Let's move on in verse 36. At the time of the sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, Lord, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac and Israel, let it be known today that you are a God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord. Answer me. So these people will know that you are a God and that you are turning their hearts back again. Third point, it takes an unquenchable faith to win this world. Elijah did not care about his position. He walked into a place knowing that he would die after running away. He walked into a situation where he knew he was going to perform a sacrifice to call on God to bring down fire. And he didn't even have an altar. He didn't even have a bull. He didn't even have anybody by his side. But with one disciple and the Spirit of God, we were always the majority. We were always the majority. And he walked in there and he goes, they may have 800 people, but I have God. And the army of God is who? God. The army of God is God himself. So when you're walking in with God, I mean, no wonder why he didn't collapse. God, I'm with God. No. You guys go get a bull, do your song and dance, and then when you're done, I'm going to build this thing, and you guys are going to watch me do it from scratch, so no one's going to say like, oh, he tricked us. And he was so confident, and he started to do his job. That was Jesus' ministry. Jesus did not have a place to stay. He did not have an altar. He didn't have his church. He didn't even have any guys. It was just Jesus. And yet he knew he was going to die. The same position as Elijah. And yet he walked right in and preached the word. And before you know it, he had the army of God. And I think about all the times where he could have summoned the celestial beings to be at his side. Yet he gave us a pure example, being tempted by every sin that is known to mankind, and yet never falter. What an inspiration for us today. That was Jesus' heart. That was the apostles' heart. That should be everyone's heart this morning. And I know that some of us just got baptized. Some of us are studying the Bible. And some of us are just old disciples. And boy, we got it the hardest. Because we've seen people come and we've seen them go. They're like, here we go again. We're about to have a transition. How did transition become a bad word? I mean, it's God we're serving. If Jason gets called to something right now, you guys should be fired up that God's still moving. You should be fired up. That's not an announcement. What's getting in the way of you really optimizing your strength, optimizing yourself, optimizing your whole person for God? Everybody's got one or two things. I'm a lousy guy, so I got 6 or 7 things. Just being honest, I got all kinds of things working against me. One of the things I'm really going after this year is my health. Somehow my stomach turned into a playground this year. And my kids would come up and like, I'm like, what is going on with you kids? And every day they remind me, Dad, you're like, can you see your feet? Yeah? Of course I can. One of the things I realized is God's given me this body and I've mistreated it this whole time. Thinking that the answer to salvation is another Pop-Tart at midnight. And it's not. I don't know if you're aware of this. It's not. I can't find it anywhere in the Bible. And I think that a lot of us need to really work. I know I'm not the only one. We need to work in our discipline. We just need to go. I was surprised. We had a D time with Tim. And I kept looking at him and all I could hear was, because I kept looking at his face. I'm like, what happened to the other half of your head? He lost so much weight. And then he's like, bro, I just go hunting. And he explained this whole hunting theory to me. And by the time I was done, I was like, I got to go hunt. But the bottom line is he put his mind to something. And he's doing a great job leading the tribe, isn't he? And I think about the example that he set for me. And I go, you know what? I'm going to go after that. The reason why I'm not making more disciples is I'm such a lousy example. I mean, we have this thing in Honolulu. I call them, it's Operation I Gotta Kill the Whole Chin family. And so I'm talking about this Chin. It reminds me of the story I read up in the front. When you guys see me next year or whenever it is that you see me the next time, you're gonna be like, bro, what happened to the other half of your head? And I think about what's stopping you from actually going after the critics in your campus. What's stopping you from silencing all the different clubs? I mean, are there better clubs than your club on campus? Are there better clubs? Is there a club that has a band and they have this concerts together and they all look good and they're all early? They're never on time? On campus? Bigger than yours? While you got the struggling 14, oh, we love you with the love. Is there someone in your singles ministry right now that you can imitate? You look at that one brother or sister. I want everybody to look at somebody and go, that's the brother I'm going to imitate. I'm going to cling on to that guy. I'm going to find out. I'm just going to humble out. Bro, what is it that you're doing? Because you have the confidence of Elijah. He says, what is it that you're doing? You're always so happy. It's like, my husband gets discipling. The people are waiting for us. The people are waiting for us in our campuses. The people are waiting for us in our junior high schools. In Honolulu, sadly, you can actually buy crystal meth at an elementary school. Oh yeah, it's not limited to elementary schools now. Parents are training their children how to become dealers, and the children don't even know it. Every day a child is being taken away to CPS. Every day. And my countrymen are dying. But this is a story for every America. People are dying right now. And Elijah knew coming into this that his only purpose was to sacrifice himself at the cost of himself so that God could be glorified, so people could have a source of salvation, that people could see God's immense power and return to him. I say this world must return to God. And you are the answer. In closing, I think God is fired up for us. God is just absolutely fired up for us. I'm fired up for your new place where you guys might possibly meet. That's a cranking place, man. But we got to silence the critics with all boldness. And if you're the critic, you got to silence yourself so that God can be heard. Too much noise going on up here. Nothing is impossible for the builders of God in his kingdom. When you're building your kingdom like Elijah's example. And it takes an unquenchable faith to win this world. I want to leave you with this. Aloha keakua. God is love. And everything that he teaches us, he cares. And he proved it through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. No matter where you're at in your life. I was telling Jason, I said, bro, you got 200 workers. What if every single person baptized one person before December 31st? I'm like, are you going to have a church of 400? Oh my goodness, is that possible? Do you think it's possible with God? Yeah. Do you think it's possible with God? Yeah. Do you think it's possible with God? Yeah. Aloha keakua.